This video is supported by Skillshare. Quarterly smartphone numbers in China was just released. Huawei is in and Apple is out. I'm tremendously impressed with Huawei's resilience and grit when it comes to fighting the hardships it's going through right now, but that's a topic for another day. Today, I want to talk about iPhone's inevitable decline in China and why China should not be blamed for iPhone's bad performance. First of all, I want to emphasize that as the title suggests, I'm not here to tell you that Apple is doomed or its products are bad. Quite the contrary, Apple services and its wearable businesses are thriving right now. Take Apple Music as an example, its subscriber count skyrocketed in a short span of 3.5 years to right now 60 million people. That makes Apple at least $6 billion a year. No company in the world can quite pull this off except Apple. So as long as Apple fans among us continue to pay, Apple is happy to make the money. However, the narrative for iPhones are quite different. Sales are stagnating, competition is getting worse, making it harder and harder to justify iPhone's rising price. What's even worse is that people in some parts of the world is waking up to the question, is iPhone really worth it? I'm talking about the Chinese. Everywhere you look, whenever Apple's decline was reported, it's always the same story. Our sales in China is dipping, we're caught in the middle of the trade war. While I can't comment on the effect of trade war on iPhone sales, it is not hard to see that iPhone was not doing so well in China long before trade war even started. iPhone sales globally peaked in 2015 with its iPhone 6s. So it's not that Apple is declining because of its bad performance in China caused by the trade war. It's that iPhones are no longer as competitive as before, and the Chinese are especially sensitive to the merit of a phone. So let's explore some unique facts about Apple China together. Fact number 1. Apple might be invincible everywhere else, it's stripped of its ecosystem superpower in China. Many of us have heard of WeChat, but most are unfamiliar with how prevalent it is in Chinese people's daily lives. It is not only a private messaging app, but it also includes services like ride-hailing, food delivery, buying movie tickets, booking hotels and flights, so on and so forth. You can even access many applications on WeChat. This effectively makes WeChat a mega app that replaces iMessage, Apple Music, and to a smaller extent, App Store. We do not yet know what WeChat will become in the next 10 years, but it is certain that with such competitions, Apple's ecosystem monopoly exists to a much smaller extent in China. Therefore, how Apple China turns out to be will be a good guide for how Apple could become in the rest of the world without its ecosystem superpower. This superpower also manifests in another way. In economics, it's called network effect. To put it very simply, network effect is when all of your family and friends use iMessages and you simply can't be the outlier to force them to use WhatsApp for you, just like how everyone in China uses WeChat. Fact number 2. iPhones require extensive telco partnerships to work. In Singapore, it's Singtel, M1, and StarHub, and in the United States, it's of course AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile. iPhones are expensive, it would be much harder to sell iPhones in the United States if not for carrier finance plans. According to a survey done by civicscience.com, 44% of Americans who own a smartphone got it on a finance plan. It took a long time for users to get used to and get locked into carrier finance plans, but the Chinese consumers didn't have that. Since China's development only started in the past 40 years, there was no time for such purchasing habits to form before Chinese internet companies moved in and split the market. More often than not, a typical Chinese person will buy his smartphone in a direct experience store from Huawei, Vivo, Oppo, or an online store from Xiaomi. Without finance options, it is very expensive to buy an iPhone in China. There goes Apple's telco sidekick. Fact number 3. Local competitions making dedicated smartphones for the Chinese people. Many of my Indian audiences are familiar with last year's Poco phone launched by Xiaomi, and they sold like a hotcake. This is the kind of strategy adopted by Apple's competitors nowadays. They customize not only the prices, but also features of a smartphone for the audience they're targeting. Huawei, Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, and Samsung, all of them have premium smartphone lines and budget smartphone lines. Take Huawei as an example, its Mate P series selling for $800 is dedicated for business users. Nova targets Young, who loves taking pictures and listening to music, and there's also a Huawei Enjoy series, only available in China, dedicated to those who love watching videos with their smartphones. Every series is dedicated to a specific group of audiences or use cases, and they're legit better for that particular group. So the war on Apple is rather a competition between two sales philosophies. On one side is the Apple philosophy, where the iPhone is an object of perfection that everyone desires and gets, but on the other side is the Chinese philosophy against one-size-fits-all, customizing for each group with features dedicated for them. It's too early to tell which one is winning, but the global emergence of product fragmentation speaks positively for diversification. At the end of the day, Apple's situation in China is unlike anywhere else. It's not fair to say that Apple China is like a Superman without its powers, because the Chinese people do still desire the Apple brand, but underneath the brand is a hollow, empty base without Apple's ecosystem support. So it becomes a grand test to consumers of China on how attractive Apple's brand is without MacBooks, iOS, App Store, iPads, AirPods, and telco partnerships locking in customers. As far as I can tell, Apple's brand isn't as magical as we thought it is in the developed part of the world. And as a Forbes article pointed out, Apple is in the same dogfight as everyone else. Stripped of its iOS superpower, Apple fights on a mix of raw specifications and how attractive the hardware is. And this is a good thing for consumers, isn't it? Without such ecosystems locking you in, consumers have an unprecedented level of freedom to choose products based on merits, not legacies, based on features, not brands. Maybe this is the engineer inside of me speaking, but may the best product wins. I love making video analysis on companies and industry dynamics, but those skills didn't come to me naturally. I learned that from my previous work in venture capital investment and by running my own company. Once you understand the true reason behind Apple's decisions, you can see the world from a different perspective. That's why I'm recommending Skillshare today. Skillshare is an online community with over 25,000 classes in analytics, business, technology, and more. If you want to understand company strategies like me, why not check out this fantastic Skillshare original course on strategy, essentials for management, consulting, and startup success. It takes you through the ins and outs of strategy and business essentials, very important for those of you who want to have a more informed view of companies like Apple. I like this course a lot. Join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for you. 2 months of Skillshare for free. To sign up, visit the link in the description and get 2 months of unlimited access to over 25,000 classes. And after that, it's $99 a year, which is only $8.25 a month with an annual subscription. And by doing so, you're also helping this channel. So a big thank you from me as well.